Hello there, and welcome to another character profile. Today I'm going to discuss the history of one of the most notable characters of classic British literature, and one still going strong to this day. I'm talking about a small, marmalade-loving bear named after a train station. None other than Paddington. Created by Michael Bond, he first debuted in the book A Bear Called Paddington in 1958. And while it has been spun off into merchandising and television shows, he has managed to keep his integrity. In that first book, his personality was immediately established. Emigrating from darkest Peru, he was found by the Brown family at Paddington Station, and was subsequently brought into the home. His most notable feature came in the form of a big red hat, and he was soon given a coat, and while I know what it's actually called, I've always, and will always, refer to it as a Paddington coat. He later started wearing red Wellington boots, which actually originated from the toys as a way to get them to stand up straight, and Bond added them to the books. He also has an interesting appetite for marmalade sandwiches, which probably represents his frequent ability to get stuck in sticky situations. He is quite a friendly bear, though he can occasionally become untrusting of people, resulting in his famous hard stare. His adventures have included getting into mishaps involving his neighbor, Mr. Curry, and traveling with Mr. Gruber, the shopkeeper. All of this is portrayed through Michael Bond's strong writing and solid sense of humor that immediately makes Paddington a likable character, and it's no surprise the books have continued to endure. With the success of the books, it's no surprise that Paddington made the jump to television, starting in 1975. The first was a show that mixed stop-motion animation with traditional animation as a three-dimensional Paddington interacted with 2D people, and it's quite a unique effect for the time, which adds a certain old-school charm to the proceedings. Of course, the scripts are also very clever and capture the spirit of the books wonderfully. Michael Horton's narration adds further humor to the proceedings, and why Great Britain produces some of the best children's programming. One episode that, not surprisingly, left a memorable impression on me is one where Paddington goes to the movies and sees Singin' in the Rain, leading to an unforgettable recreation of the famous scene from that Gene Kelly musical. This is definitely one of the finest stop-motion shows to come out of the UK. A number of years later, Hanna-Barbera made their own animated series, at a time when they were handed the rights to a number of European properties, most notably the Smurfs. By 1980s Hanna-Barbera standards, it's an okay show, and it does a reasonable job of recreating the original stories. The most perplexing part of it is the choice of Charlie Adler as the voice of Paddington. It just doesn't fit, in my opinion. I'm sorry, but when I hear that voice, I think of the Crypt Keeper, which should be the last thing that comes to mind when watching a Paddington Bear show. In another odd choice, I guess to make it appeal more to American children, they decide to add a new character, the Brown family's American relative David, and it's really jarring and unnecessary. As I said, it's not a bad show, but it definitely reeks of a British property being handled by American producers. Oh, and Tim Curry is the voice of Mr. Curry. I wonder how long it took to decide that casting decision. In the late 90s, CNR created a new series, The Adventures of Paddington Bear, which is definitely the one I grew up watching the most. It kept the same humor of Paddington, and done in probably the studio's most impressive animation. Jonathan Kidd was perfectly cast as Paddington, capturing his friendly nature and genuine curiosity of various things. This new show took a particular interest in having him travel around the world with Mr. Gruber, which makes sense, seeing as it was an international co-production. Not surprising, seeing as one of the production companies was French, the first episode included an adaptation of the story Paddington Takes to the Road, where he ends up in the Tour de France. And for some reason, I always found that the most amusing and memorable episode. This was a wonderful new take on Paddington, and it definitely stands on par with the earlier British series. And now, this December, we'll see the release of a feature-length Paddington Bear movie. Produced by David Heyman, who was very instrumental in the Harry Potter books being adapted with the right care, it looks to be something very special. The director is British, the screenwriters are British, all the actors, with the exception of Nicole Kidman, are British, and of course, it's being filmed entirely in England, including, of course, Paddington Station. And to voice Paddington, they've chosen Colin Firth, And honestly, if you're going to hire a big name actor for that role, that's pretty much spot on. And they've recently released the first teaser for it, so let's take a peek at how it looks. And this is officially one of my most anticipated of the year. In conclusion, there's a reason Paddington Bear is still going strong in the United Kingdom and abroad. He's a likable, funny character, and it's hard not to be charmed by his stories. See you next time.